Primary elections. These are the elections where voters decide who is going to appear on the general election ballot later in the year. The Illinois Democratic and Republican parties are holding primary elections this year on March 17th to determine who will represent their parties in the general elections on November 3rd. If we didn't have primaries, that decision would be made in a smoke-filled room, which it was before about the turn of the 20th century. Because of the way we vote in the United States, we only really get 2, sometimes 3 realistic options in most major elections, even in primaries. That's because we use plurality voting, which means whoever gets the most votes wins. That sounds reasonable, but it leads to some not very democratic outcomes when you have a lot of candidates running in a race. For example, in the upcoming Democratic primary for the US Senate, there are 10 candidates. The current leader in polling is Raja Krishnamurthy, at about 30%, depending on the poll. If that polling stays true, Raja would win with about 30% of the vote, since he technically got more votes than any other candidate. However, because there's so many candidates in the race, the remaining about 70% of the vote was split among all the other candidates. The result is that we end up with a winner that 70% of voters didn't vote for. Nothing against Raja or any of the other candidates in this race, but this is not a very strong Democratic mandate. And it's stupid that we still do elections this way when there are better ways that have been tried and tested elsewhere right here in the United States. Ranked choice voting is a system that's used in over 50 jurisdictions in the US already, including New York City, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Minneapolis, Portland, and even the entire states of Maine and Alaska. Ranked choice voting allows voters to rank candidates in order of preference. Then, through a system of elimination, determines a true majority-supported winner. It requires the winner of an election to have at least 50% of support in the final tabulation. It also means that you don't have to vote strategically as a voter. You don't have to worry about wasting your vote by voting for a minor candidate that isn't polling well. Under our current system, there's very real pressure to pick one of the top 2 leading candidates, because voting otherwise is seen as taking votes away from the 2 most popular candidates, and it increases the likelihood of a weak Democratic mandate with a poor plurality win. With ranked choice voting, you can put a minor candidate as your first choice, then maybe a more major candidate as your second or third choice. Your vote isn't wasted, and your ballot more accurately reflects your preferences. This also means the winner of the election is more of a consensus candidate that most voters can actually agree on. For primary elections, this is really good, because it means that each political party goes into the general election with a candidate that most of their party supports. In other words, each party gets a much stronger candidate with more voter support heading into the general election. That's good for party institutions. Another great thing about ranked choice voting in primary elections is that it naturally disincentivizes candidates from being vitriolic or negative towards other candidates in the primary. Under our current system, where voters can only pick one candidate, each candidate is incentivized to attack all the other candidates, saying, "I'm the only good candidate and everyone else is bad," in order to stand out. That's a winning strategy in our current system, because it clearly distinguishes one candidate from all of the others. And when you only get one choice, you're looking for the candidate that uniquely represents your views and that stands out the most. With ranked choice voting, candidates now have to compete for voters' second and third choices. So they don't want to be rude or vitriolic on the debate stage towards a voter's first choice candidate. In fact, being more cordial, finding common ground, and being more respectful towards other candidates tends to be a winning strategy with ranked choice voting. That's why, in places in the United States that do have ranked choice voting already, we see candidates going as far as cross-campaigning, where they actually endorse each other, even though they're running for the same seat. They say to voters, if you want to put this person as your first choice, consider putting me as your second choice, because I'm similar to them. That's a winning strategy in ranked choice voting elections. Like and follow for more electoral reform education videos. We advocate for ranked choice voting throughout Illinois and in the Chicagoland area so that voters can have more choices and more meaningful elections.